Hey, welcome to 5-7, Relative Frequency and Percentiles. The big idea here is the distribution of the relative frequencies of the outcomes from a situation can be displayed in tables and graphs. You just finished with probability. Probability is the mathematical idea of outcomes for something. If I'm going to draw a card from a standard deck, there's 52 cards. If I want to get the ace of hearts, the probability of drawing the ace of hearts is 1 out of 52. The probability of rolling a dice, one die, and rolling a 2 is 1 out of 6. That's probability. It's a mathematical idea of an outcome. Relative frequency is an experiment. It's when you actually did something and you did it repeatedly and you had a result. If I were to flip a coin 5 times, I might get a head the first time, a tails, and then a head, and then a head, and then another tail. And in doing that, I now got 3 heads and 2 tails. Well, that's 3 out of 5 of the opportunities were heads. 2 of the 5 were tails. I add those together. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 out of 5 is 1. So when I add up the relative frequencies, they'll add up to 1. It's the relative frequency is the number of times an event happened divided by the number of times it could have happened. I flipped the coin 5 times. I got 3 heads. That would be 3, the number of times it did happen, divided by 5, the number of times it could have happened. Relative frequency is an experiment. You should take a look at this relative frequency versus probability table. Understand what that means. Still keep in mind that just like probability, relative frequency is going to be a number from 0 to 1. 0 means it never happened. 1 means it happened every time. So that's the values for it. It's not necessarily a percentage, although you'll often see it reported that way. It's best reported as a decimal. Let's take a look here at our guided example. This is the NBA heights. We've got heights of basketball players listed in the table from 67 inches to 87 inches. We have relative frequencies, or the frequency, which is how often it was in this category. Well, what's the relative frequency of being shorter than 6 feet tall? Well, first you need to understand how many inches is 6 feet, and I believe that's 72. So at 72 inches, people that are shorter than that are not at that, so we don't count the 3 because we want people shorter, so there's just 2. And for those 2, we look at the next page here, 2 players are under 6 feet, so the relative frequency is 2 divided by the total number of players. That's how many opportunities there were to select a player, and that's 198. 2 out of 198 is approximately 0.01 or 1%. Next, let's take a look at all the players that are 7 feet tall, or at least 7 feet tall. At least tells us that they could be 7 feet tall or they're greater than that. First question, how many inches is 7 feet tall? Who's got it? Yeah, you right there in the front row. Okay, great. It's 84 inches. That's right. 84 inches is the same as 7 feet. So we have 16 at 84 plus 3, 4, 5. So that'd be 21 players that are at least 7 feet tall out of the 198 players. So we've got 21 divided by 198. That gives us approximately 0.106. That's our relative frequency. For the commoners in the world, we report it as a percentage, 10.6%. So players that are 7 feet tall or greater, that's 0.106 of the players. What about being at most 6 feet 7 inches tall? So at most means it includes players that are 6 feet 7 inches tall. And we're going to have to count up these various categories. We've got a list right here in the solution set. And what does it come out to be? Well, we add those up, and you're going to find you got 95 out of the total number available, which is 198, and that's equal to or approximately equal to 0.48, which is about 48%. What about for D? This is giving us a range, and this is really a values where it's greater than 72 inches high, and greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to 78 inches high, tall. So we've got to look at how many players are in this 72 to 78. And both of those in this inequality are included. So 78 inches and 72 inches are both included in this calculation. We add those up and we're going to find we have 70 players, and so the relative frequency is going to be 70, the number of players that are within that category, divided by 198, the total possible number of choices that we have here. So the relative frequency is about 35%. That's the idea of relative frequency. We can apply this to a lot of different events. We just have to know how many times it occurred, how many times did we get the result of interest. A lot of times these types of populations are reported as percentiles. You'll see it as a height percentile. You see it in standardized testing as a grade percentile. What a percentile means, as it says here, if you're in the 70th percentile, it means that 70% of the people that took the test had scores that were less than or equal to your score. So if you're in the 70th percentile, your score is at 70%, and it's how many are that everybody else finished below that, if you will, or at that value, excuse me. So when we have this, you can read this little definition of percentile. The 25th percentile is the first quartile, 50th percentile is the median, 75th percentile is the third quartile. Now if we take a look at the dot plot of the NBA heights, we've got it's marked with the 10th percentile and 90th percentile. A player who is 84 inches tall, that's 7 feet, is in the 90th percentile. That's right here. And so we've got our number of players that are in that category, and about 90% of the players are 7 feet or shorter, and about 10% are taller than that. Well, how did they calculate that? Let's go down and take a look at example 2. It asks you to find the 10th percentile in the NBA data and explain its meaning. Well, the 10th percentile, that's the smallest data value that is greater than or equal to 10% of the data values. So that smallest data value, let's see, there are 198 values. 10% of 198 is 19.8. So we can't go below that because we would be less than that part. We've got to be something that is greater than or equal to it. So greater than that, the next digit up is the 20th value from the height from the bottom. So we'd start counting. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We've now counted back and we see the 10th percentile is 74 inches, because at this point it is equal to or below. Any value in this category is equal to and below that, and that's the 10th percentile of NBA heights. Okay, that's it for 9-7 or 5-7. If you have additional questions or you want to review some other examples with me, come see me in class. I'd be happy to do that with you. In the meantime, you've got work to do, covering the ideas, applying the math, and come and see me for the mastery quiz. Wish you the best of luck on it. See you in class soon.